morning, delegates. May I invite everyone to take your seats, please, and settle down. We have a long day ahead of us, but I hope you have a restful night to prepare for this day. Thank you again for your hard work and amazing spirit of cooperation from yesterday night. So, if you recall, we approved 6 CRPs yesterday. This morning, we will continue the rest of the CRPs, and I will appeal to you to be brief and concise in your interventions. And if you have specific comments, please suggest clear text amendments. We want to finish everything today. I don't want to extend until Monday, so you'll have to help me with that. I would also suggest that you do not make a request for the floor if you only wish to support an amendment. I will assume that if there are no objections, then the text is carried. So we will look at the following CRPs. CRP 8 on risk assessment and risk management of LMOs. CRP 9 on marine and coastal biodiversity. CRP 10 on digital sequence information and genetic resources. And there's a Rev 1 of CRP 1, the updated scientific assessment of progress towards selected Aichi biodiversity targets. So, dear colleagues, we wanted to continue this last night, but it was late in the evening, so I hope you have refreshed minds to now begin with CRP 8 on risk assessment and risk management. So may I invite the co-chair of the contact group, Mr. Tim Strabala, to report on their work. Mr. Strabala, you have the floor. Microphone for New Zealand, please. Microphone for New Zealand.
Thank you, Chair. I had the pleasure to chair the contact group on risk assessment and risk management. The group met 4 times after its establishment by the chair, and we had intense and productive discussions on very important issues over approximately 14 hours of discussion. Paragraphs 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, as well as the annexes of the working document, were discussed, and a revised version, and revised versions of the same have been produced by the group. This process necessitated the addition of a new paragraph 6, so that the original paragraphs 6 and 7 are now paragraphs 7 and 8 in the CRP document. With regard to paragraph 3, which was part of our mandate, given that there was a very similar paragraph and discussion on the CRP for synthetic biology, which was going to be discussed by the Friends of the Chair, the contact group on risk assessment agreed to wait for the output of the Friends of the Chair on synthetic biology and use the same text that was developed there to replace the original paragraph 3. I understand now that the Secretariat will read to you the new text. Before I close, I would like to thank the Chair for allowing me to facilitate the work of the contact group, the Secretariat for their assistance and hard work, and of course, I thank all your participants for your hard work as well as your spirit of cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tim Strabala, for that update, and thank you for working very hard to be able to come up with this new document, and also for the entire contact group as well for the hard work. He did mention, the contact group chair mentioned that they did work for 14 hours on this document, and I hope we don't. I hope that we can take note of this hard work and not anymore reopen a lot of the carefully crafted paragraphs for discussion. Now I would like to start opening the floor on the draft decision paragraph by paragraph, and then I will request for the Secretariat to make a to update us on a new text on paragraph 3 as mentioned by Chair of the contact group. So I begin with the preambular paragraph, recalling. I see no request for the floor. Next paragraph, reaffirming. No request for the floor. Number 1, paragraph, notes. No request for the floor. 2, recognizes. No request for the floor. And so we're now into 3. May I request the Secretariat to update us on the new text for 3.
Good morning, delegates. As explained by the chair of the contact group, the paragraph 3 in front of you is square bracketed, as agreed in the contact group, to be replaced by the outcomes of the discussion on synthetic biology. And those are paragraphs that 11 and 12 in the synthetic biology document. It reads, the 2 paragraphs were originally 1, they were split into 2 in synthetic biology, so that was reflected here as well. And the 2 paragraphs would read, recognizes that as there could be potential adverse effects arising from organisms containing engineered gene drives, before these organisms are considered for release into the environment, research and analysis are needed, and specific guidance may be useful to support case-by-case risk assessment. Paragraph 3b will be notes the conclusions of the ad hoc technical expert group on synthetic biology that, given the current uncertainties regarding engineered gene drives, the free, prior, and informed consent of indigenous peoples and local communities might be warranted when considering the possible release of organisms containing engineered gene drives that might impact their traditional knowledge, innovation, practices, livelihood, and use of land and water. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. So, as these wordings is the exact text as in the SynBio document, I hope there will be no comments on or objections to the text that was just read by the Secretariat. Okay. Thank you very much. We move on to 4, calls for. I see no objections. On 5, establishes. I see no objections from the floor. On 6, no objections or request for the floor. On 7, further decides. No requests from the floor. Decides. No requests for the floor. 9, invites parties. No request for the floor. 10, request the Executive Secretary. No request for the floor. On 10, subpara A. No request for the floor. 10, subpara B. To collect. No request for the floor. 10C. No request for the floor. 10D. No request for the floor. 11, request substa. No request for the floor. So we go to the annex. Annex 1. On the identification and prioritization specific issues. I see no request for the floor on the first paragraph, the process for recommending specific issues. No request for the floor. Small a are identified. No request for the floor. B, no request for the floor. C, no request for the floor. D, no request for the floor. E, and then we have subpara I, have the potential to cause. Okay. No request for the floor. And then small 2, I may be introduced. No request for the floor. 3, no request for the floor. Small numeral 4, no request for the floor. And then we have the TOR for the ATEG. First paragraph, no request for the floor. Para A, no request for the floor. Norway. Okay, gone. Norway, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a small typing error in line 3. Gene drives, not derives. Thank you.
Thank you, Norway. On B, no request for the floor. C, no request for the floor. Norway again on C.
Sorry to take the floor again. Just a small misplaced S in line 2. Remove the S before leaving. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Norway. On D, prepare a report. I see no request for the floor. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair of the Contact Group, Mr. Strabala, for the hard work. We now move this document as... Okay. Okay, so we have just approved the CRP with some minor changes. Since we are meeting in plenary in a moment, I will recommend that we put this forward for formal adoption. First, just to be sure we are all aware of the final text, I would ask the Secretariat to once again read the changes just agreed to. Can I call them to Secretariat, please?
The new paragraphs 3 and 4 we read recognizes that as there could be potential adverse effects arising from organisms containing engineered gene drives, before these organisms are considered for release into the environment, research and analysis are needed, and specific guidance may be useful to support case-by-case risk assessment. Paragraph 4 notes the conclusions. There is no translation. There is no French translation. Can we have French translation, please? Okay. I will start again with paragraph 3. So starting from the beginning, paragraph 3 recognizes that as there could be potential adverse effects arising from organisms containing engineered gene drives. Before these organisms are considered for release into the environment, research and analysis are needed, and specific guidance may be useful to support case-by-case risk assessment. Paragraph 4 notes the conclusions of the ad hoc technical expert group on synthetic biology that, given current uncertainties regarding engineered gene drives, the free, prior, and informed consent of indigenous peoples and local communities might be warranted when considering the possible release of organisms containing engineered gene drives that may impact their traditional knowledge, innovation, practices, livelihood, and use of land and water. Thank you. Excuse me. I should also point out that there were the typos that were corrected, and those are in Annex 2, little a. Instead of gene, on the third line, derives should read drives. And in little c, on the second line, after the square brackets, there is an S hanging there. So those are two types that will be amended as well. Thank you.
So with that, my colleagues, can we now adopt this recommendation? I see no objections, so thank you. Move on. Okay, so that's a very good start, everyone. I hope we proceed in the same manner for the rest of the documents for the day. Let's now begin with the consideration of CRP 9 on marine and coastal biodiversity. I would like to invite my friend Mustafa Fauda to present the results of the contact group on marine and coastal biodiversity. Egypt, you have the floor.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. The contact group met on marine and coastal biodiversity, met twice with a total amount of almost 8 hours working hard within a good spirit. So we had very clear mandate that we should focus on the annex itself, because it is all about the options for modifying the description of ecologically and biologically significant marine areas. So we did most of the work. However, when we have some debate on several issues, like the actors that can be possible for modifications, so we found that the best way we can do it is to have options, to have two options, and we have to put them in a bracket in a way that we hope that they will be resolved this morning. So I was very glad to share this meeting, and all members who attended this worked very, very hard to reach a consensus about this annexing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mustafa, and to the rest of the contact group members who worked with you very hard for 8 hours on this annex. my dear colleagues. Since the contact group only discussed the annex, I propose that we go through the draft recommendation paragraph by paragraph, and then, okay, until we get to the annex. So I begin with under Substa, in the chapeau, recalls, number 1. No, Morocco, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la
Thank you,
la parole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Morocco has asked for the floor to make a statement that I hope will be pragmatic. We would like, in this session, to finish with the texts with the least amount of brackets possible, and to go to Sharm el-Sheikh with a maximally agreed upon text, because effectively we will not have the time in Egypt to once again reopen the discussions of principles that are enshrined in these documents. And therefore the plenary really must make a major effort and allow me to say get rid of these brackets once and for all. Thank you, Madam.
Okay, thank you, Morocco, for that intervention. But I did say that we will first proceed with the agreed text, and we hope that we don't have any more objections on that. And then when we come to the annex where there are a lot of brackets, and we hope we will no longer have any questions and try to proceed with the least brackets as possible. Okay, so again, on 1. I see no objections on 1. The second paragraph, request the Executive Secretary. No request for the floor. On the recommendations of the COP, we begin with the chapeau, reaffirming decisions. No request for the floor. Reiterating the central role of the General Assembly. No request for the floor. And then we go to operative paragraph 1, welcomes. Okay, I see no request for the floor. UK, you have the floor.
Thank you, and good morning, colleagues. I'm going to keep my interventions as short as possible today for the reasons outlined by Morocco, so we can get through this as fast as possible. But the United Kingdom would like to propose an additional paragraph in the preambular, consistent with the agreed wording in decisions 1222 and 1029, and I will read out the wording in the chapeau we propose. Recalling that the General Assembly Resolution 6471 reaffirmed that the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea sets out the legal framework within which all activities in the oceans and seas must be carried out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, UK. Any objections? Morocco, you have the floor. Objection?
No, I asked for the floor before this, but certainly it's not a problem. The reference made by the UK is very relevant as it deals with the Convention on the Law of the Sea. No, I was asking for the floor just for a term that's used in paragraph 1 in French at the end, welcomes.
Yes, the Secretariat will address the translation. Okay, thank you. Turkey. Okay. Any objections, Turkey, on the proposal from UK?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have an objection to the proposal of UK. Can we also kindly ask to which paragraph it is proposed by UK? Is paragraph 1, 2, 3, or in the COP decisions 1? We couldn't understand it.
The new preambular paragraph in the COP decision.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have an objection. As Turkey is not a party to UNCLOS.
UK, can you withdraw that proposal? Microphone for the UK.
Thank you. Apologies, Madam Chair. The UK cannot withdraw the proposal. As I mentioned when I introduced the preambular, this is consistent with wording that the Conference of Parties agreed in Decision 1222 and 1029, and as this is agreed wording, the United Kingdom does not see a problem with its inclusion. Thank you.
Okay, can we park that proposal for a while and proceed with the other paragraphs? And then we can come back to you and Turkey and for those who are interested on that proposed paragraph. We move on. So, okay, so again on the operational paragraph 1, any comments? Objection? Morocco, is this an objection or because I only need an objection?
No?
No, I have no objection. No objection.
Thank you, Morocco. But you don't have to say it if you support me. Okay,
non, c'est pas pour appuyer. Enfin, ouais.
No, it wasn't for supporting. Okay.
All right, so on 2, I would like to park 2 as well because this will refer to the annex and we will come back to that later. We proceed to paragraph 3, request the Executive Secretary. Any objections? Okay, there's none. We move on to number 4, calls for further collaboration. I see no objections. We move on to UK on 4.
Yes, Madam Chair, and hopefully this will be my last intervention. The United Kingdom would like to request the removal of the words in the application of relevant area-based management tools for 2 reasons. EBSAs are not actually linked to the management of activities, they just provide information, and a number of the organisations named in the paragraph 4 are not responsible for the application of area-based management tools. So, although we support area-based management tools, we feel this wording is out of context. Thank you.
Thank you, UK. Any objections? Greece, you have the floor.
So it was not for an objection, just to support the proposal with the same reasoning. Thank you.
Thank you for the short intervention. But Germany, objection?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We would like to see this wording kept in the paragraph because we do think it is relevant with respect to ECPAS. Thank you very much.
I would like to hear from Turkey first before I decide on this. Turkey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are also very pleased to see the wording here. We support Germany. Thank you.
Thank you, Turkey. So we park this. We put this in brackets first and then come back to it later. We move on to 5. Reaffirms the sharing of the outcomes. I see no request for the floor on other matters. Takes note. 6A. Subpara A. No request for the floor. 6B. No request for the floor. We move on to 7. Encourages parties. Japan. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Japan would like to propose a small insertion in the second line between information, and in their efforts, we'd like to propose to insert including That is for not limiting the use of information to actual effort, but the information to be utilized more broadly, including for further scientific consideration and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. Any objection to the proposal of Japan on item 7? I see none, so the proposal is carried. Thank you, Japan. On paragraph 8, under other matters, recalls decision. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair.
The Chinese delegation thinks that the relevant measures in paragraph 8 is very important for protecting biodiversity in the cold water area. At the same time, we'd like to remind all of the delegates here that we need to strengthen the synergy between the different processes, international processes. Deep sea mining has already been dealt with in some frameworks already. We need to avoid duplication and a waste of resources in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, China. Did you propose a text to address your intervention? Is there a text proposal? China.
No, Chair.
You, China, so we just take note of your comments on 8. We move on to 9. Request the Executive Secretary. I see no request for the floor. On 10, I see no request for the floor. Para 11, welcomes. Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Japan would like to again insert a small phrase in the end of paragraph 11, saying with setting specific themes. This is for SOI to have meaningful and efficient discussion and obtain maximized outcome within limited resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. Again, which part of the paragraph do you want to insert your intervention?
In the end of the paragraph, after Sustainable Ocean Initiative, to add maybe comma with setting specific themes.
Thank you, Japan. Any objections to the proposal of Japan? I see none, so we move on to, so thank you, Japan. We move on to paragraph 12, also welcomes. I see no request for the floor. We move on to paragraph 13, invites the FAO. No request for the floor. 14, welcomes the cooperation. Okay, I see no request for the floor for 14. Before we move on to the annex, I would like to go back to... Okay, I'd like to go back to 4, where we had discussions on the text, the application of relevant area-based management tools on the 7th line of paragraph 4. Is there a resolution to this to the proposal of the UK?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And in the spirit of trying to move this process onwards, the United Kingdom could accept it if it had the word including in the application of relevant area-based management tools. So hopefully that will be satisfactory. Thank you.
Thank you, UK. So is that acceptable? Germany, Turkey, Denmark, you have the floor.
Thank you. And we would actually still have a bit of trouble accepting this language. We do think it is outside the scope of the EPSA process. The EPSA process is purely scientific and technical. And now we are asking for further collaboration in how to apply this in management, area-based management tools. So this is not within the scope of the EPSA process. So we would actually like to support the process, the suggestion by the UK before, to have this deleted. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to hear from Iceland first. Iceland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I sincerely support the intervention by Denmark right now. This is absolutely outside of the mandate for the work of the EPSAs, and we would like to suggest the original suggestion by the UK to delete this.
Germany. Okay, thank you. Iceland, Germany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Germany could accept the second suggestion of the UK with stating including in front of this part of the sentence. We do think that this is relevant and does not exceed the scope of the EPSA process because it's simply using information which has been gathered in this process. And we would like to remind that
Germany. Yeah, we get your point. So
it has been used in 14.
Yes.
Paragraph 14 of 1029.
Okay, thank you, Germany. Germany, UK, Denmark, Iceland, please go outside and resolve this and then come back to me and maybe we can have a very good agreement. Although with the compromise that was already presented by UK, which is including, I think that's already flexible enough. So I would appeal to Denmark and Iceland to be more friendly and sorry, lack of term, my brain. Okay, Denmark and Iceland to maybe take into consideration the already the compromise text that was suggested by UK. Okay, so we'll come back to that in a while. So we also had the preambular paragraph that was recommended by the UK. And we also had some concerns regarding that paragraph. I would like to know if this has been resolved by the parties concerned. UK? Greece, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Because I had asked for the floor before, but it is for us very important to include this paragraph, the reference to UNCLOS as being the legal framework within which all activities in the oceans and seas must be carried out. This whole decision is within the realm of the law of the sea, so it is very important to state clearly in the framework, within the framework that we are working. This is very important not only for different rights and jurisdiction of states, but also for marine scientific research, which is a very important parameter
Thank
of
you,
this
Greece.
decision.
Yeah, thank you, Greece. We get your point. Although the Secretariat already has referred us to decisions 10/29 and 12/22 that already refers to the same text. So if you can kindly refer to that, and then maybe I can come back to you, UK and Greece and Turkey, to try to see what we can do with the proposal from the UK in this new preambular text. Okay, I'd like to go back to the text on number 4, including the application of relevant area-based management tools. Has this been resolved? Turkey, you have the floor.
Let's see which paragraph they would propose. We were also thinking the same issue. We can also refer to some paragraphs, including, the phrase that works, international law, including. So, yes.
Okay. And thank you.
We will have only this one. There's a couple paragraphs mentioned.
Okay, are you talking to us? Or? Because you cannot hear. Turkey. Can you make your voice louder?
Madam Chair, actually, we are trying to solve the issue. Maybe 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Uh, 2 minutes, both for the preambular paragraph and the bracketed text in 4. All right, I see Denmark. I hope you propose a good solution. Denmark, you have the floor.
Well, I will propose the best solution forward, for now at least. We couldn't find any agreement, so we would actually suggest that we put the original language in brackets, which means it will not include reference to including, so just a bracket of around the application of relevant area-based management tools, and bracket again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Denmark. Then that goes to the COP then. For the proposal of UK, the preambular, the additional preambular text. Has there been a resolution? UK.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't feel that all the parties that raised this issue around this paragraph would be able to agree here today, so I suggest the preambular is put in brackets. Thank you. And we would be happy for it to be put in brackets.
Thank you very much, UK. So we'll put that in brackets and move it forward to the COP. And we now move on to the annex. And I would like to recall what Morocco mentioned earlier about hopefully minimizing the brackets in this document. But first, I'd like to hear from Greece. Greece, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. Just for clarification, in the preamble, the proposal by the UK will be in brackets. Yes, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Greece. Now I would like to again call on Morocco so that he can remind us of how we can proceed with the annex and the documents as he was mentioning earlier in his intervention. Morocco, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame. Thank you, Madam. Morocco, right from the outset, and given the stakes related to this document, wanted to ensure that we lay the groundwork for the success of the 14th COP in Sharm el-Sheikh. And so we called on all parties here to come to some sort of agreement in terms of all the paragraphs which are bracketed in this annex. In our view, if we were to go to COP with bracketed text, would certainly undermine the scope of some of the major discussions we will be having, whether it be in plenary or contact groups. And so we call once again on all parties to be tactful, be ready to compromise, and come to COP with a very minimal number of brackets or no brackets. And so I once again would like to repeat my call to delegations to please be flexible. Thank you.
Thank you, Morocco, for that call for the delegates to try to move the document forward to the COP with the least brackets as possible, and also taking note of the efforts of the contact group that they worked for 8 hours to complete this document, and still we're not able to resolve certain texts. But we would like to address the Code of Morocco and try to see if we can resolve some of the texts that are in brackets and see if we can remove them. I will not try to reopen the texts that are no longer in brackets because this has already been agreed for 8 hours in the contact group. So I would like to proceed on the first bracketed text on B, reasons for modification of EBSA descriptions on number 3. And the bracketed text is scientific and technical. Can we remove the brackets for scientific and technical? Norway, you have the floor. Norway. Microphone for Norway.
Okay, I think I'm on. Thank you, Madam Chair. Norway suggested to use include at the contact group, but we can support to use are as long as scientific and technical is added as suggested. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Norway. So your proposal is that we remove all the brackets as long as we don't as long as we delete include. Are there objections to that? Brazil, you have the floor. Microphone to Brazil.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification, on paragraph 2, I would like to know if we're going to leave it for further down the line to discuss this, the second sentence of this paragraph, because we believe that it is dependent upon the decisions we're going to make later during this consideration. Thank you.
Yes, for now, Brazil, we're just looking at the bracketed text just to see if we can try to remove the brackets. In the meantime, we leave the paragraphs that are not in bracket and maybe come back to them if we still have time. But in the meantime, I'd like to again ask if there are objections to the proposal of Norway. France, you have the floor.
Merci. Thank you, Madam. Well, yes, France does have an objection to the Norwegian position. The main idea of paragraph 3 is to modify EBSA descriptions, but you can only do so for scientific and technical reasons.
Thank you, Franz. The Secretariat would like to read the entire number 3 text.
Yeah, I will just try to see if I correctly captured proposal from Norway. So because how I heard Norway, the sentence will read, scientific and technical reasons for the modification of EBSA descriptions are the following. That's what Norway agreed to keep. So whether France is happy with that.
Belgium, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would support France that by the inclusion of scientific and technical, it implies that there are other reasons for modification, which Belgium does not believe is true. Thank you.
like to call UK first. UK, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the UK would be happy to remove scientific and technical at the start of the paragraph, and it would then say reasons for the modification of EBSA descriptions. And then we would we would suggest are, because actually the list are scientific and technical reasons. Indeed, the last one actually says any other reason based on scientific and technical information. So we don't feel that the word scientific and technical at the start of paragraph 3 are actually necessary if everyone agrees that all the things are listed are scientific and technical. So hopefully that might help. Thank you.
Thank you, UK. I think that's a very good proposal, and I hope there will be no objections to that. But I see Costa Rica on the screen. Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Gracias.
Thank you very much, Madam. Well, we do believe we should include scientific and technical reasons in 3, because there are other reasons that aren't scientific and technical for modifying EBSA descriptions or other type of reasons. But here we're talking about jurisdictional issues and so on. So we would prefer then to keep scientific and technical reasons at the beginning of paragraph 3. Thank you.
Okay, so my friend Morocco, because you wanted to remove the brackets, maybe you have a very good proposed text for us. Morocco, you have the floor.
J'espère. Well, I hope to meet your expectations. The UK proposal is something we can agree with. Why? Well, for 2 main reasons. First of all, if you take a look at 3A, B, C, D, E, and F, there we have all the scientific and technical reasons. But quite beyond that, the scientific and technical reasons, there are other reasons. For example, if you take a look at D, there could have been scientific errors, or E, changes to the EBSA template. So it's quite exhaustive if you take a look at it. If you just try to limit it to scientific and technical reasons, you're excluding other reasons that could be invoked to make a modification to an EBSA description. So for all those reasons, we would like to actually remove scientific and technical at the beginning of paragraph 3, and that everything mentioned by the UK is in line with what we can support. Thank you.
To Morocco, unfortunately, your proposal has, and the proposal of UK has also some concerns that were raised by some of the delegates, like Costa Rica just mentioned. So we might be back to square one, but I would like to hear from Indonesia, please. Maybe you have a solution, Indonesia. Indonesia, microphone for Indonesia, please.
Thank you, Madam. Indonesia would just want to stress that support for the removing the scientific and technical from the paragraph. So it's going to be the reason for the modification, because it's a deal with the, we do have some other reasons for adopting the EBSA descriptions. Thank you.
Thank you, Indonesia. So let me try again. Can I go back to Costa Rica? If we can delete scientific and technical as proposed by UK. Costa Rica. Microphone to Costa Rica, please.
Señora.
Well, Madam, we believe it's important to maintain this language. However, in a spirit of compromise, we would agree that we could delete scientific and technical. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Costa Rica. So we have the formulation from the UK then. May I request the Secretariat to read it again, please?
Reasons for the modification of EPSA descriptions are the following.
Okay, do we have any objection for that new formulation on para 3? I see none. Okay. Thank you very much. Good job, Morocco. Right, so we move on to the next paragraph under C, number 4. We have two options on the table, and I'd like to hear from the parties on which option you would prefer us to work on. Turkey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also, in order to have a paper with the least amount of paragraphs, we support option 1. And in option 1, in order to remove some of the paragraphs, we propose in C, for C, in second line, after the phrase, with provision of notice to all states, full stop, and deletion of all the rest of the sentence, because it is clearly stated in previous EPSA decisions that EPSAs do not have any legal implications and economic implications, and EPSAs are strictly scientific study. Thus, they do not have prejudice to another legal entity by definition. Thus, we believe we don't need to even mention the possible prejudice. And this would decrease the number of brackets. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Turkey. So I see you prefer to work on option 1. Are there any objections to just working on option 1 as our working text for paragraph 4? New Zealand, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My intervention doesn't speak to a preference for either option, but I did just want to note very briefly that we think some wording concerning notifications, which was found acceptable for option 1, should perhaps have been carried over also into option 2. So that wording would appear in option 2, sub-paragraph B, under the wording competent intergovernmental organisation, and the wording is with provision of notice to all states. So as mentioned before, this wording was found acceptable in discussions about option 1, and we just think perhaps it may have not carried over to option 2 as would have been intended. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that means you support working on option 1 if we carry over some of the text from option 2?
Apologies, Madam Chair, for the delay. New Zealand has a preference for progressing discussions around option 1. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, New Zealand. Yes, you have the floor. So we want to progress the option, the discussion on option 1. Greece.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to say that we would like to have on the table also option 2, which is in brackets, and it could remain in brackets, but we do not want to leave that to be. We would like to have it there as well, even in brackets. Thank you.
All right. Based on the interventions, it seems that we need to keep the two options, option 1 and option 2, because there are parties who would prefer to have both options there. There was an intervention from New Zealand on option 2, and I would like to hear if there are objections on the insertion of the text that was proposed by New Zealand. Can we ask the Secretariat to read again the proposed text by New Zealand, which was an insert to option 2?
So in option 2, paragraph B, New Zealand proposed on the second line, after competent international organizations, to add a sentence, actually the wording similar to option 1, which is, with provision of notice to all states.
Any objections to the proposal of New Zealand for option 2? United UK, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I wasn't going to object to that at all, so I'll support that, and I think your decision to keep both options on the table is a very wise decision. I was just going to point out a matter of consistency, that we, in option 1, we use relevant coastal state and the coastal state and coastal state. So I think, just for the matter of linguistic consistency, I think we should delete the word relevant where it says in option 1A. It should say the coastal state. Thank you.
UK. Any objection to the proposal of UK to remove relevant and just say the coastal state? I see no objections. We go to C of option 1, the proposal of Turkey to just have a full stop after all states. Jamaica, you have the floor. Jamaica.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we were going to also ask that the Turkish suggestion be taken, so the bracket would start from before without and end at the end of it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jamaica. Greece, you have the floor.
Thank you. We would like to keep the reference to the developments that take place in Anga on the sustainable conservation, sustainable use of marine biological diversity in areas beyond national jurisdiction. It is very important, and also in the preamble we acknowledge the fact that the General Assembly of the United Nations is its central role on this subject. So
Thank you, Greece. Yeah, we understand. Denmark, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just missed the discussions on para B, so if we could go back to para B, because I had a question for clarification in the last sentence where it says comma in consultation with the other states concerned. And at least from our understanding...
Sorry again, Denmark?
In option 1, B.
On option 1, okay.
B.
There was no intervention for option 1B. It was for option 1A.
Yeah, but I do have some question for clarification in regards to B. I missed the discussions. I mean, I didn't mention, there wasn't any mentioning of B, and I have a question for clarifications, because we do
just to organize the discussion, Denmark. Okay. My question was on C, and then we can come back to your clarification if needed, but I wanted to see if there was objection to the Turkish proposal, and there were some support, but there were also some objection and there was a proposal from Greece to keep the remaining paragraphs. So I suggest we put a bracket here. Sorry, Morocco, but we have additional brackets on option 1C. Okay, so Denmark, you have the floor. Microphone to Denmark. This is on option 1B.
Thank you.
A text.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, it is just trying to understand option 1B, because it says in the last part of the sentence, in consultation with the other states concerned, and to our understanding, the concerned states with the first part of the sentence will be addressed. So we would just suggest this to be deleted, or just ask for some clarification, because we don't quite understand that. Thank you.
So, which part do you want deleted, Denmark, in consultation with the other states concerned?
Yes, but if we could get some clarifications on the actual.
Okay, Denmark. Okay, so
content of that reference.
Okay, thank you, Denmark. If Denmark, if no one can make Denmark understand in consultation with the other state concerned, this will be deleted. Are there any objections for the deletion of this in consultation with the other states concerned? Jamaica, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the issue was that if we say only one state, so if it says the coastal state in whose jurisdiction the modification is proposed, then it leaves out the other states that also have an interest in this joint EPSA. So this is why the last part was added. So if it is that it's all states that are discussing this EPSA, then fine. But as it reads here, if it is only one state, because it says the coastal state in brackets with an S, in whose jurisdiction the modification is proposed, that means that one state in the joint EPSA can make a decision. We're saying if that one state wants to do it, then it must consult with the others who have an interest in that joint EPSA. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jamaica, for that explanation. So Denmark, is that clear with you? Do you still, can you now agree to keep this in consultation with other states concerned? Thank you. I see Turkey. Turkey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very briefly, we also would prefer to keep the phrase here, so we support Jamaica. Thank you.
Thank you, Turkey. Okay, I think we have a general agreement on C, where we retain the brackets and retain the options 1 and 2 with the additional text that were provided by the parties just to address their concerns. And so I would like to move on to paragraph 5, knowledge holders. Okay. Yeah, okay. There's no bracket on 5. So we move on to the to number 6 on the options. Modalities for the modification process. We have brackets on option 1, and we have 3 options, and we would like to work on each option and see if we can remove some brackets as requested by Morocco, as called for by Morocco earlier. The entire option 1 is in brackets. May I Okay, option 1 is in brackets, option 2 they're all in brackets. So again, I would like to hear from you, my colleagues, my friends, if we have a preference to which option you would want to work on. Republic of Korea, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, again. The Republic of Korea prefers option 1 over option 2 and option 3, but in the spirit of compromising, it's acceptable for us to have these 3 options as they are. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Korea. Belgium, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to ask some questions for clarification to streamline the discussion. Option 1, can that be applied for areas beyond national jurisdiction? And maybe the Secretariat can answer my several questions for clarification.
Yes, Belgium, go ahead, and the Secretariat will try to respond.
So can option 1 be used for areas beyond national jurisdiction?
Secretariat.
Very short answer, yes.
Okay. All right. Belgium.
In our understanding, option 2 and 3 are for areas within national jurisdiction. Is that correct?
Following the discussion at the contact group, yes, we can interpret it as it was developed mostly for the areas within national jurisdiction.
Belgium, again? Is this a trial?
No, it's not a trial. It's just to try to speed up and make everyone on the same page. Okay. I think option 1 can also be used if parties wish so for areas within national jurisdiction. And if we make that distinction quite clear, then I think option 1 should be put out of brackets for areas beyond national jurisdictions and for areas within national jurisdictions if states so wish. And then we can have a discussion on 2 and 3 for areas within national jurisdiction. That would be the Belgian proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Belgium, for that proposal. I would like to hear from the others if they have any objections. Republic of Korea first. You have the floor.
Yeah, from option 1 to 3, from my understanding, are all applicable to beyond national jurisdiction and within jurisdiction. So I don't agree with Belgium's proposal and understanding. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Republic of Korea. Jamaica, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My recollection of the discussions in the contact group is that option 1 would apply to both areas beyond national jurisdiction and areas within national jurisdiction. But there were national exercises where countries were undertaking national exercises internally, and they wanted to keep those processes in place and to be so recognized. So therefore we put in option 2, which is really A and B. So really option 1 was always on the table. And then we had option 2 and 3, which speak to the same issue. And what we were trying to do is to put in elements in the national process, which would allow us to have a peer review process, scientific and technical exercises being put in as part of the national process. So Madam Chair, for me, it's really option 1 and options 2, which would be 2A, and then option 3 would be a B, which is the alternative to option 2. So that's my understanding, Madam Chair, because it can be that in option 1, countries which do not have national exercises will use option 1 to go through the process. That's my understanding, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamaica. Thank you for providing that explanation. So your proposal is to keep option 1, and can you be more precise, Jamaica, based on your explanation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We will have to keep option 1, and then what we need to deliberate is between option 2 and 3, because there's only a slight difference at the end of the sentence for options 1 and 3. So it's really option 1, and then at second part to deal with the national exercises. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jamaica. So it's the same proposal as Belgium. I'd like to hear from Brazil. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just as a suggestion to clarify a little bit this discussion, we believe it is advisable to turn option 1 into modality 1, which would apply to ABSCs or parts of ABSCs beyond national jurisdictions, and options 2 and 3 to lump them up and make modality 2 ABSCs or parts of ABSCs within national jurisdictions, so that the discussion remain consistent with what we are yet to decide on paragraph 4. Otherwise, it would be a little bit puzzling and a process too difficult to understand, and moreover, inconsistent. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. So it's similar to the recommendations of Belgium, Jamaica. UK, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would just like to thank the distinguished delegate for Jamaica for bringing clarity to these proceedings, as she did late the other night in the contact group. And based on what Belgium and Jamaica said, supported by Brazil, I think it's clear that everyone agrees. That's an ambitious word, but let's try and get some agreement that option 1 does relate to areas beyond national jurisdiction. So I think that is quite clear. Then the issue is about areas within national jurisdiction. And if I understand my previous speakers correctly, there are so within national jurisdiction, there are 2 options which deal with a solely national process, but option 1 is also available to sites within national jurisdiction if the states choose to utilize that rather than a national process. So I think what we could do for the heading for D is add in areas beyond national jurisdiction and make that solely responsible for option 1, and then take option 1 out of brackets, and then we can decide how we frame our discussions on the options within national jurisdiction. But I think from my understanding of the conversation so far, everyone has agreed that option 1 is definitely for areas beyond national jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you, UK. Okay, Iceland, the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I sincerely concur with what the UK said and also with the Jamaica's explanation. As for the options, 2 and 3 for description of EPSAs within national jurisdiction. Iceland would prefer option number 3. I would like at the same time to make some suggestion on wording.
Okay, all right. Iceland, thank you.
If I can read that it just goes in line with the text in decision 1222, just to include after the repository or the information sharing mechanism. Just to add that, just for clarification. Thank you.
Sorry, Iceland, which paragraph? Is it in...
Madam Chair, thank you. I just explained that Iceland, between the options 2 and 3, Iceland would certainly opt for option 3. And then I would like to, just for clarification and consistency with decision 12/22 in paragraph 7, like to add the words after repository and the second last line, or the information sharing mechanism. So the information could go either into the repository or the information sharing mechanism. Thank you.
Thank you, Iceland. China, you have the floor. I'd like to hear from you on the proposals.
Thank you, Madam Chair. China believes that in our contact group we have agreed that option is applicable both to beyond and within national jurisdiction. We think that option 2 and 3 are only complementary to option 1. They are only updates for information on option 1. As for the choice between option 2 and 3, we prefer option 2. Thank you.
Thank you, China. So I think there's more clarity on how to deal with these options. And there's a general support for the proposal of Belgium, supported, more elaborated by Jamaica, and then supported by Brazil and the UK. All right. Based on the interventions and what I just mentioned, that's a summary of the discussions from the floor. The Secretariat has a proposal. Secretariat.
Just like to check where we are based on last interventions. So if we remove the word option 1 and we introduce a short introductory sentence simply saying for areas within and beyond national jurisdiction. Then we remove brackets from what is today and now option 1, and we go with A, B, C as they are. So we also remove option 2, and we introduce similar type of a short sentence for areas within national jurisdiction. And then we have 2 options which we need to discuss and see if we can merge them or if we keep both of them in square brackets and maybe go this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. I hope that summarizes the discussion and the recommendations from the parties. I would like to hear from Morocco. You have the floor. Hopefully, you can facilitate agreement, Morocco, as you did
Merci
earlier.
beaucoup, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We align ourselves completely with what the Secretary just proposed. We must continue on by eliminating the brackets from option 1 and changing the chapeau as you just said. For the other 2 options also, this is at the national jurisdiction level. I think that if we were to combine them, that would be a good idea. Otherwise, we'll get lost in 2 options. They will always be coming closer and closer together, but never will there be agreement. So I think that we should do that. Take off the brackets from option 1 and then join option 2 and 3 together because they are very, very close together. They're very similar. So a little bit of editing, I think, would make it possible to come up with a version that the Hall would accept.
Okay, that's support for the Secretariat proposal. Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Sí, gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted also to support what our Moroccan colleague had just said, and perhaps combine option 2 and 3, which are almost identical, and leave them in brackets for review, which would then be considered by the next COP, and to support a report that would then be provided on that basis to the next COP. Thank you.
Okay, we heard the proposal from the Secretariat and also from Morocco and Costa Rica that they don't have any problems with the option 1. And there were also several parties who said that they can remove the brackets from option 1. So I would like to open the floor for any objections on the removal of the brackets from option 1, taking into consideration that we are talking about beyond and within national jurisdiction for option 1. Any objection to removing the brackets? UK, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank the Secretariat for nearly, after 9 hours and 47 minutes, nearly bringing us to a conclusion. So the UK is quite happy to remove the brackets if the chapeau could read, and this is very similar, so it's not anything radically new, for areas beyond national jurisdiction and within national jurisdiction where the coastal states so wish. because that means that the coastal state can either use this option, which is for both areas, or it will have the choice of using one of the two options below. Otherwise, it doesn't quite flow. So I'm not even going to call it option 1 anymore. Paragraph 6, A, B, C would apply to areas beyond national jurisdiction and areas within national jurisdiction if the coastal state so wishes. Thank you.
So thank you, UK. Thank you, UK. May I request the Secretariat to read the text again that was provided by UK with a minor change?
So I just wonder if to be sure that the qualifier where the coastal state so wish applies only to the to the within national jurisdiction, if we could just change the order for areas beyond national jurisdiction and comma where the coastal state so wishes, comma, within national jurisdiction. Just to be clear, it's only applying to part of that.
Okay, thank you, Secretariat. Can we hear that again, please? The text.
So the new short subtitle will read for areas beyond national jurisdiction and where coastal states so wish within national jurisdiction.
Thank you, Secretariat. Okay, so I go back to the proposal whether we can now remove the brackets from option 1, which is no longer an option. It's maybe an actual paragraph with the new state text that was proposed by the by UK and improved by the Secretariat. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brazil would like to congratulate the delegation from the UK for the clarification of this item D. It's much more clear now. But we believe that perhaps in an effort to further clarifying it, we should, instead of for areas, we should say for abscess on the chapeau, for abscess or parts of abscess beyond national jurisdiction, and if the party so wishes, for abscess or parts of abscess within national jurisdictions. And the same would apply to the second chapeau for abscess or parts of abscess within national jurisdictions. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. Any objections to the proposal by Brazil, which is an improvement, again, of the proposal from the UK? Okay, I see no objections. Then Republic of Korea.
I did not get really clearly the Brazilians' proposal at the end part about when it comes to part of abscess within jurisdiction. So could Brazilian delegate clarify on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Republic of Korea, but I will ask the Secretariat to to read again the text.
So if we captured correctly the Brazilian proposal, again this, and Brazil, it's not really D. It's actually a small chapeau at the beginning of the paragraph. So it will read, for EPSA beyond national jurisdiction and where coastal states so wish, for EPSA within national jurisdiction.
Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. it is quite accurate, but we would like to add for abscess and parts of abscess beyond national jurisdiction, and if the party so wishes, or where the party so wishes, for abscess or parts of abscess within national jurisdiction. The first chapeau. The second one would be for abscess or parts of abscess within national jurisdictions. So this wording, which we are proposing, we're doing so to be consistent with the options which are still open for us in paragraph 4. So that's pretty much the language applied to option 2 of paragraph 4. And we are more comfortable with that option. So that's why we are proposing this in paragraph 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. So, Morocco, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Morocco was in agreement with Brazil for the first version and supported it entirely. But if I may allow to make myself to make the next clarification, we're talking here about parts of EBSAs. And so we're already beyond national jurisdiction, so there's no need to make this clarification, as it adds nothing to the wording that was already proposed by the Secretariat at the end. The moment that we talk about several kilometers or even several hundreds of meters outside of national jurisdiction, it is this article that will apply automatically. And so there is no need to focus on parts of EBSAs.
Morocco, Korea, you requested for the text again from Brazil. May I hear from you, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My apologies for taking floor again. It is very difficult for us to accept the Brazilian proposal because the Brazilian proposal might be in consistency with the option 2 of paragraph 4, but it's not consistent with option 1 of paragraph 4. So it is Korea cannot accept the Brazilian proposal. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Korea. But if we need to go back to, because you already decided on paragraph 4 earlier, so if we need to go back to paragraph 4 if there's a need to, as soon as we finish paragraph 6. But what I want to ask Brazil, but what I want to ask Brazil now is if you can live with the deletion of parts of EBSAs, because that is what is being, that's the concern that was raised by Morocco and Korea. Brazil.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in the spirit of compromise, Brazil is happy to accept the wording proposed by the delegation of the United Kingdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. So that's the UK proposal with improvements that were included by the Secretariat. Okay, UK, you have the floor.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I don't need to intervene now for two reasons. you have sorted it out, and my efforts to complete this whole thing before the football finish has completely failed. So, despite the urging of my distinguished delegate from Morocco, I have all the time in the world to spend on it now, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, UK. So, with the new introductory text that was proposed by UK and with some revisions from the Secretariat as just read, now can I request if there are any objections on the removal of the brackets from this the option 1 in CRP 9, but it's not option 1 anymore, but a new paragraph for 6. Okay, I see no objections to the removal of the brackets. So we have the removal of the brackets in option 1, but with the preamble to introduce these subparagraphs that was just read by the Secretariat earlier on that this applies to EBSAs beyond the national jurisdiction and where coastal states wish within national EBSAs within national jurisdiction. Okay, so that does away with the one bracket from D. Thank you very much, Morocco. We move on to option 2. There were calls that we leave option 2 as it is, but it's no longer option 2, it will be option 1, and option 3 would be option 2, and there's going to be a new preambular statement for these options, and I would like the Secretariat to read again this preambular statement that will apply to option 2 or option 3.
So, to be in consistency with the previous one, this sentence will read for EBSA within national jurisdiction.
You, Secretariat. Right, with that, I would like to see if there's any preference for any of the two options. Jamaica, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't want to weigh in on the two options yet, but Madam Chair, I think other delegates did talk about having one sentence, one paragraph, and the bracketed text would be at the very end, because it's only at the end that the paragraph changes. So we don't need to put another option 2 and 3. We just have one paragraph, and then we have two brackets starting from after update. So the first bracket would be for the subsequent consideration of SBSTA and COP. That's one bracket. And the next bracket would be and request and continue. So we would have two brackets, one paragraph with two brackets at the end. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jamaica. So maybe I would ask the Secretariat to read the entire paragraph and incorporating option 2 and option 3. Secretariat.
Okay. So, one paragraph. Building on the procedure set out in paragraph 7 of decision 1222, the coastal state may provide an update of the description contained in the EPSA repository as per the reasons outlined above, and submit information on the scientific and technical process as well as the peer review process supporting the update. Then we open square bracket, the first one. For the subsequent consideration of SBSTTA and COP, we close the bracket. Then we open the second square bracket, and we say, and request the Executive Secretary to include it in the repository or the information sharing mechanism and submit a progress report to SBSTTA and COP. We close the bracket.
Okay, thank you, Secretariat. Any objection to that new formulation that now combines option 2 and option 3, which applies to EBSAs for EBSAs within national jurisdiction? Okay, I see no objections. Franz, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sure it's not going to be very controversial, but there was a preceding intervention which said that we should add after repository or the information sharing mechanism. And I do believe there was no objection to that proposal.
Franz, I'll ask the Secretariat to read that again to include the text that you reminded us on.
Franz, I read the text as was proposed by Iceland for the second square brackets. So then the question is if you like to have exactly the same text for the first square bracket. If this is a point, then of course we just add same way. But the initial proposal from Iceland was for option 3.
Okay, Secretariat. Just read the whole thing with the proposal from France.
So, okay, then the paragraph, I probably will not read first 3 lines and will start from supporting the update, we open square bracket. For the subsequent, France, so that's probably will be, so okay, building on the procedure set out in paragraph 7 of decision 1222, the coastal state may provide an update of the description contained in the EPSA repository or the information sharing mechanism as per the reasons outlined above, and submit information on the scientific and technical process as well as a peer review process supporting the update. And then we have 2 square brackets, the first one for the subsequent consideration of SBSTTA and COP, and the second one, and request the Executive Secretary to include it in the repository or the information sharing mechanism and submit a progress report to SBSTTA and COP. Is that what France proposed?
Thank you, Secretariat. Are there any objections to the text that was just read by the Secretariat? Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora.
Thank you very much, Madam. No, we have no objection to the French proposal. What we would like to say that prefer option number 1 with brackets, because EPSAs were dealt with by SBSTA, and SBSTA was created by COP, and so then we think we should be coherent and consistent in the way in which EBSAs are created, and of course how they are subsequently modified. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Costa Rica. Actually, the brackets are still there on the contentious issues within the options, so so that we don't bracket the entire paragraph, but there are bracketed statements at the end of the paragraph which still addresses your concern. So if you can be more understanding of how the text was formulated. So, but we'll come back to you on this. I see UK of the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one insertion into the unbracketed text, which I think is important. So I suggest inserting but not replace between provide an update of and the description. This is to ensure that the institutional memory of the EBSA remains within the repository. So the update does not actually remove the previous information. So I think that's important for continuity and understanding of decision making. So it would read, the coastal state may provide an update of, but not replace, the description contained in the EBSA repository. So that's the UK proposal there. And in terms of the two options for the bracketed text at the end, which you've just referred to, the United Kingdom prefers the latter proposal because that is entirely consistent with the procedure set out in paragraph 7 of decision 1222, and we would like to maintain that consistency. Thank you.
Thank you, UK. First, I would like to see if there are any objections on the first proposal of the UK on the text, but not replaced. Jamaica, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This matter was raised in the contact group, and the question was asked because one of the reasons that we will amend or modify the EBSA is if there are errors in the scientific information in the repository. So I don't understand why we would want to keep erroneous information in the repository. So I cannot accept that there is no avenue to replace the information. If the information is erroneous, and that the erroneous information should be removed and replaced. This is too broad a scale to say we will not replace. Thank you, Madam Chair. There may be other reasons why. So I think it would be too broad now to say we will not replace.
Jamaica, you have a proposed text?
Well, Madam Chair, we were happy with the text without the UK insertion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
France, maybe you have a solution?
Thank you, Madam. I think that, well, France supports the UK proposal of but not replace. And I would like to explain to the Jamaican delegation that it only is an option that is a supplementary option. To the one that we had consensus on. where we'd taken the brackets off of it. So there is a way to replace an erroneous description by making a COP decision which replaces the older description with the erroneous information in it through the modality that has been agreed upon. As you understand, we're discussing a case where we have to choose between these two options at the end, and there is no passing it through the COP. It is the coastal state. The coastal state does this without COP.
France, we understand your explanation. Now, Jamaica, can we offer a compromise and just say, but not necessarily replace? So then we can be open to replacing some, but not all, especially the ones that are erroneous. Then we need to replace that. But then if you want to keep some, then they stay. Jamaica.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, I would go along with that, but not a blanket statement to say it will not be replaced. The substance we would not replace, but if there are erroneous information in there that we should replace, then we should replace it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jamaica. So you're happy with the new text, but not necessarily replace. Thank you. Morocco, you have the floor.
Merci, Madam.
Thank you, Madam. I think that nobody is questioning the fact that EPSAs are not static entities, they are dynamic. And it isn't just errors that we can remove from one or another EPSA. It is possible to edit and to make changes of things that have been described earlier. It is perhaps an EPSA wants that a state wants to increase the size of the EPSA, and that is not an error. Therefore, the updating is a very general term. It's very much more adequate, and I think that it covers both elements of error and elements that are not erroneous.
Okay, thank you, Morocco, for that explanation. I want to hear from France as well. France.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam. My proposal would be to put in brackets, but not replace, simply because this is a phrase that depends on other brackets, the brackets at the end of the paragraph. So whether or not it's passed by COP, we have to decide then on the brackets on that basis. The two issues are interlinked.
Thank you, France. So we'll just put in brackets, but not replace the proposal from UK, unless UK wants to withdraw, given the explanation from Morocco, because it's updating anyway. UK, you have the floor.
There was I thinking I was trying to help the process. I am happy to withdraw my proposal if everyone is happy for me to withdraw my proposal. Thank you.
I'm very happy, UK. Thank you. So, Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As for the two options bracketed that are on the table right now, Brazil would like to express its support for the first one, the one which says for the subsequent consideration of SBSTA and COP. And we would also be happy if the Secretariat could reread the second chapeau. Does it say areas within national jurisdiction or EBSs within national jurisdiction? The second one.
EBSs.
And thank you for your clarification. And as for the first chapeau, it says areas and not EBSs.
EBSs.
EBSs
Yes.
too.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Thank you, Brazil. I think we've done a lot of work already for cleaning up paragraph 6. And we saw that in the bracketed statement, the bracketed text, in the last part of this new paragraph, there's still no agreement because there's the second bracketed text is supported by UK and Brazil is supporting the first bracketed text. So I think we can leave those on brackets for now and move that forward to the COP because we've already done a lot of work for 6. So we'll just keep it at that. And I'd like to move on to letter E if there are no more interventions. Germany, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to make one request for an addition, an amendment to an unbracketed text under EBSA's, in the first part of 6, small c, small I, for the significant modification. We would like to suggest to add, for the significant modification, the procedure outlined in paragraph 11C and D will be utilized. Thank you.
Sorry, again, Germany?
It's in former option 1.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbracketed now, and now there we see I. And now we're in significant modification. And just to clarify what will happen, how will this significant modification be made or decided on, we would like to add, after modification, the procedure outlined in paragraph 11, C and D will be utilized. And then semicolon and the rest continues as it was.
Okay, thank you, Germany. And your reference to C and D is in paragraph 11 under modalities. Are there any objections to the proposal of the slight change, just for clarity, that was proposed by Germany for small c, I, Costa Rica?
Gracias, señora presidenta. Estoy revisando.
Oh, no, you have
29 y el párrafo.
Thank you, Madam. We have no C and D in the preamble, and therefore the entire paragraph, especially 11, needs to be reviewed. Now, I'm not sure whether Germany can be clear as to what paragraph they are referring to.
Costa Rica, it's in the annex, B, modalities to undertake, and it's not in brackets, so it's just referring to another unbracketed paragraph. It's 11C and D in section 2. So if this has been agreed upon, it's not in brackets, so it was agreed in the contact group, and Germany just wants to refer to C and D to just be clear with the process. So Costa Rica, can you? Is that
Sí, señora Presidenta.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, I'm not actually talking about the brackets. I'm talking about the references that Germany was making to Decision 1029, which refers to paragraph 11, B and C. And if you take a look at 1029, actually paragraph 11 doesn't have subparagraphs, and so I'm wondering, could Germany tell me exactly what paragraph of Decision 1029 that they are referring to? But I'm not really referring to bracketed text. Thank you.
Thank you, Costa Rica. Maybe the Secretariat can better explain the intervention from Germany. Secretariat.
So, Germany referred to paragraph 11C and D of the current CLP in page 7. So, I will read it. So, under the section B, with the title of Modalities to undertake the description of new areas meeting the EPSA criteria, there is paragraph 11, and the C refers to read as follows. The informal advisory group on EPSAs reviews the proposals and advises when a new regional workshop is needed. A scientific gap analysis can inform this review process and identify the need for thematic analysis, which can complement regional workshop. And it follows with D, which read, the description of new areas through regional workshop follows the existing process of submission to the subsidiary body on scientific, technical, and technological advice and the conference of parties for consideration and possible inclusion in the EPSA repository. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. So, Costa Rica, the reference of Germany is not from Decision 1029, but it's what is outlined in the current, in CRP 9, number 11, page 7, C and D. So it's not in 1029, but it's just referring to the process that is outlined under modalities, and this text is not in bracket. So it's agreed text in the contact group. So Costa Rica, is that does this provide clarity, and can we accept on that basis the proposal from Germany?
Yes, Madam Chair, it's clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so now we really move on to E. And I see no brackets in E. So we go to the section, description of new areas meeting the EBSA criteria on number 9. Again, we have option 1 and option 2. Okay, now I open the floor for discussions on number 9. We have option 1 and option 2. On number 9, I would like to hear from New Zealand. New Zealand, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a similar intervention now that we're in Section 2, as I did under Section 1 of the Annex. And that's just to note that for our considerations of Option 2, we believe that some wording concerning notices, which was found acceptable in Option 1, should perhaps also have been carried over into Option 2. And that wording is to follow and or competent intergovernmental organisation as it appears in Option 2, subparagraph B. And the wording is with provision of notice to all states. And again, just to mention, Madam Chair, that this was language that was found acceptable in relation to Option 1, and we think perhaps it was just lost rather than being carried into Option 2. Thank you.
Thank you, New Zealand. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to ask to go back a little bit to paragraph 6, because we moved too fast to paragraph 9, and we had a point still to discuss, which is the Option 2. We very much prefer the following language. Abscess or part of abscess within national jurisdiction. We really insist on this, please. Thank you. As the chapeau, Option 1, abscess or part of abscess within national jurisdiction.
Sorry, Brazil, earlier, we already discussed this earlier, and actually Brazil already was flexible enough to delete these parts of EBSAS because there was no general support for the parts of EBSAS. I think we should move forward, Brazil.
I'm so sorry, but we understood areas, and the text is EBSAS, so we really insist on this.
Brazil, I really want to move on because we're done with 6, and we already had agreements on this, and Brazil was the one who proposed that we use the term EBSA, and then there were discussions about the questions about the use of parts of EBSAs, and Brazil was kind enough earlier to withdraw the text on parts of EBSA. So Brazil.
Yeah. I think there was a misunderstanding, and I'm so sorry if we understood it wrong. We understood areas. If it is areas, it's okay for us. But since we are speaking of abscess, we cannot live with the language. So it should be according to what we are suggesting, or we'll have to find another solution. I'm so sorry.
All right. So okay, so in that case, because it was Brazil who proposed EBSAs, we can go back to areas. Are there any objections on just going back to the word areas instead of EBSAs? And then Brazil can go along with the areas instead of EBSAs. Okay, I see no objection, so we go back to areas. Okay, and then you withdraw your yeah. Areas on both chapos. Okay. All right, thank you. So we just revert back to areas in paragraph 6. Okay, so please, no more requests to go back to any of the paragraphs. We now move on to paragraph 9. And we had the intervention from New Zealand, which I don't think anybody objects to, which is with the provision of notice to all the states, also included in option 2. So the same as with the earlier, and how we approached the earlier sections, I would like to ask if there are preferences to option 1 or option 2, or any proposals to improve on or to remove the options in para 9. UK.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm reliably told there's another football match included in the Russian Federation later, so perhaps that's another target that we could aim to reach. I know that would satisfy some of the people on the top table. And Croatia, of course, my fellow EU member state. So you can tell who we'd be voting for. So in terms of option 1, just a couple of linguistic changes that I mentioned before. So in option 1A, we would like to delete relevant before coastal state. In option 1B, we would like to delete all relevant in front of coastal state. And in 1D, we would like to remove relevant in front of states. Thank you. That's consistent with what we proposed earlier on in the text. Thank you. That's without prejudice that we actually favour option 2.
Thank you, UK. Turkey of the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as well, it is known that actually we prefer option 1, which has less brackets, because we want a document with the minimum amount of brackets. And in option 1 as well, again, as we also stated for Article 4 in the annex, in Article 9, we request for option 1C, second line after the phrase, with provision of notice to all states, full stop. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Turkey. So we'll also do the same thing here as with the paragraph 4. Greece, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just, I don't want to prolong the discussion, but just our preference is for option 2, and that the proposal to delete the reference to BB&J process should be in brackets and not deleted, as it was in relation to paragraph 4. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll be consistent with what we did in para 4, in para 9. And I see no more requests for the floor. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. China prefer option 1. we suggest that in B, we keep the original wording, all relevant coastal state. The reason we have mentioned in the contact group that for the EPSA's description, we need to respect the relevant country's sovereignty. With regard to D of option 1, we hope that it will be aligned in a competent intergovernmental organization. After that, we add in consultation with the relevant states. Thank you.
Thank you, China. So the counter proposal is just to keep all relevant coastal states. Can UK live with that, or else we won't finish before the next game?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, the United Kingdom cannot live with that because that indicates that there are coastal states in whose jurisdiction the description is proposed who are not relevant to the proposal. So if you just say relevant coastal states, that indicates there are coastal states that are not relevant, but in whose jurisdiction the description is proposed. And we find that unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, UK. With that explanation, China, and after all, we adopted the proposal of UK for paragraph 4. Can we delete the relevant in para 9? China. China.
Give me several minutes, Chair. Thank you.
So while we're giving China a couple of minutes, may I call on France, please?
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't quite understand why we're having this discussion on paragraph 9, because it's exactly the same description as in paragraph 4. I do believe we could simply put in the brackets and cross out text and do exactly as we did in paragraph 4. Just move it all into paragraph 9. Thank you.
Thank you, France. That's what we were proposing, but there were additional text that is now being it's now concern from China. So let me hear from China now. So, China.
Thank you, Chair. That's in Chinese.
Maybe we can change the wording. Paragraph 3, in consultation with other states, maybe we can use the wording as paragraph 3, in consultation with other states.
We accept the deletion of relevant, but may I know where your insertion, where?
This is on B.
Yeah, it's on D? B.
Maybe the coastal state in whose jurisdiction is proposed in consultation with other states' consent.
Okay. Thank you, China. So thank you, China. So we agree with the deletion of relevant, but we include the text in consultation with the other states in B and in D of option 1. Okay. Are there any objections to that, Greece? Because I want to move on. Greece.
Thank you. It is not objection, but just to I just want to state our understanding that we do not make modification to option 1 because this is not the preferred option for us, but it's option 2. Otherwise, there are certain insertions like this one that we could not go along, but we do not wish to modify the other. So just to be our position. Thank you.
Greece, yes, we're keeping both options and in brackets, but these are just additional text so that we can move forward to the COP. Okay, so with that, we treat this as, of course, earlier also recommended and suggested by France. We treat this as option the same as paragraph 4, keeping both options and just providing some text that are without prejudice to the options that you prefer at a later time. Okay, I want to move forward now because we're... Okay, so we decided to keep same options in paragraph 9, and okay, I would like to hear from Argentina.
Gracias, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in paragraph 9, subpara B, where we've said in consultation with other states that we're going to add. Now, it seems to me that this little snippet of sentence takes away some of the weight. We're here to talk about creating new EBSAs, and that to do so we need the consent of all coastal states. That's the first part. That all of the coastal states in whose jurisdiction the description is found. So why are we adding in consultation with other states? What would those coastal states be? Or it seems to me the first part is sufficiently clear that it's all coastal states who have to consent. So why do we have to consult other coastal states that are concerned? Therefore, the best choice, best option, must remove that part that was proposed, that in consultation with other coastal states.
Okay, Argentina, actually number 9 just refers to initiating the description of the new areas. So China this is a proposal from China, and they already agreed to remove, to delete relevant. So this is just in addition that there may be some consultation with other states concerned in initiating the description. Yeah, and then we'll have the process. So can we just keep this anyway? This is in brackets, so we will come back to it in the COP. Thank you, Guatemala. Argentina, sorry. My mind is somewhere else. Okay. In the game. So we're done with most brackets and some options which we cleaned up, and we move to the last bracket of the. Okay, so we have one more text or two more paragraphs that are bracketed, and this is in page 8, para 17, under national exercises. Can you look if I refer to this paragraph 17, and it's B and B alt. And if you look at how it is formulated, it is similar to paragraph 6. Yeah, the last subparagraph of 6, which we agreed on earlier, and where we cleaned it up, so we don't have the option 2 or option 3 anymore, but we have just one paragraph, but bracketing only the last part, which refers to the process either for subsequent consideration of the SBSTA and the COP, or request the Executive Secretary to include it in the repository and submit a progress report. So my proposal is to combine this B and B alt and just bracket the last portion so that we reduce bracketed text. We only have one bracketed text, bracketed paragraph, but we have the bracketed text at the end of this paragraph. So may I ask the Secretariat to read that out before I ask the parties if they agree or not? Secretariat, please.
So the combined options, as it was agreed on paragraph 6, would read as follows.
Paragraph 70.
Yeah, 7. Yeah, which is. Yeah.
So as Chair explained, similar to what we did previously, so we will have, instead of B and B alt, one paragraph B. Building on the procedure set out in paragraph 7 of decision 1222, the coastal state may submit the results of national exercises on the description of areas meeting the EPSA criteria, together with information on the scientific and technical process, as well as a national peer review process supporting the description, and then we have a square bracket for the consideration of SBSTTA and COP for possible inclusion in the EPSA repository. We close square bracket. And then the second one, and request the Executive Secretary to include it in the repository and submit a progress report to SBSTTA and COP. Seems to me there is no French translation. Again, please check.
So, thank you very much, Secretariat. And it actually just combines, it simplifies the B and B alt, so we only have one B. And then just the brackets at the end of the paragraph. Are there any objections? I see no objections, so we're done with this CRP. Right. Okay, so my dear friends, we've worked so hard again on this CRP 9 to clean it up and taking into consideration all your proposals and recommendations. May I now recommend this for adoption as an L document, taking into account all the revisions all the revisions and the comments that we have all agreed upon. Are there any objections to moving this as an L document the way it stands, including all the comments and recommendations that we have just agreed upon in the session? Sweden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make a suggestion for the annex that we haven't discussed, is that Sweden would like to go back to the original wording and use the word traditional knowledge throughout the annex, which is accepted CBD terminology. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sweden. Okay, we'll take that on. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brazil would like to clarify just one point, if possible, regarding paragraph 17, letter A. We believe that it is dependent on what has been decided in paragraph 11. Maybe it should be made a bit clearer in this bullet. Thank you.
Brazil, can we ask for the proposed text to address your concern on A, 17A? Is it referring to paragraph 11 of this CRP? Brazil?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Brazil would like to propose that in letter A, after all the wording of the bullet, we could add a comma and the phrase, if the party so wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. Okay, this is just an additional text on A, and Brazil proposes that after repository, comma, if the parties so wishes. And this just provides some flexibility for the parties to decide on the inclusion in the EBSA repository, which is a process anyway. I would like to see if there are any objections to that. Okay, I see none. So, okay, so we're done with this document. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to go back to see the soccer games, but we cannot agree with the previous recommendations. If we add this sentence, this will add the uncertainty of these activities. So if the party doesn't wishes, what should we do? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, China. So we'll just put that in brackets if China cannot agree, and Brazil will push for it. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Being that as it may, Brazil would like to see the expression, if the party so wishes, into brackets. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Brazil. So now I would like again to ask my colleagues for us to adopt this document as an L document, taking into consideration all the comments and the recommendations that were already agreed upon in this session. I see no objections for the CRP to move forward as an L document. Thank you. Colleagues, we have a few more minutes to spare. If you allow us to maybe begin discussion just on the DSI document. My colleagues, can you just delay your lunch for a while so we can begin with DSI? And we only have 12 minutes to do this. We'll try to finish in 12 minutes. May I now call on as you recall, we created a contact group. I know we're all very excited to discuss this document. All right. Okay, so we created a contact group which was facilitated by my colleagues in the Bureau, Hendrik from Belgium and Soohyo from Mexico. And I know they worked really very hard to come up with this draft. I would now like to call on the co-chairs to give us a background on this document, CRP 10. Mexico, you have the floor. Microphone for Mexico.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Madam. Distinguished delegates, the contact group on genetic resources met for the first time on Monday at night to have an exchange of ideas. And based on interventions in plenary and shared points of view, my co-chair, Hendrik from Belgium, and myself decided to drop a non-paper with recommendations on draft decisions for the Conference of the Parties and for the Nagoya Protocol. And the contact group met once again on Wednesday night actually, to consider the non-paper. And given the limited progress we made within the contact group, we decided to set up a Friends of the Co-Chairs mini group to try to see where we could reach common understanding. The Friends of the Co-Chairs met on Thursday, actually all day on Thursday, and our friends worked hard in a spirit of compromise and consensus, and they actually came up with a text which has a limited number of brackets, I'm happy to say, and this text was given to the contact group yesterday, actually around lunchtime, as a revised version of the initial non-paper. So in reviewing the document, the contact group raised a number of additional proposals which were subsequently included. Nevertheless, taking into account the lack of consensus on most of these proposals, the document is now full of brackets in the CRP that you see before you. In addition to all this, the draft decisions, both for the COP and for the Nagoya Protocol, are also in brackets, entirely in brackets, as a matter of fact. So I would like to thank my co-chair, Madam, as well as the Secretariat and all participants in the contact group. We know full well that this is a complex issue and very sensitive issue, and we would hope that parties are going to be better disposed to deal with this issue adequately. It's absolutely critical for the future of the convention. And taking into account the complexity of this document and the fact that there are no other alternatives for moving forward at this plenary, we would suggest that we adopt directly an L document without getting into any more discussion or any more suggestions for any amendments from anybody. We would hope that at COP in Sharm el-Sheikh we'll be able to come to grips with this issue and actually come up with a better solution that better fits the objectives of CBD and the Nagoya Protocol. I'm not sure if my colleague co-chair would like to add anything else, but if not, here you have the document, and I thank you kindly.
Thank you, Mexico. All right. Thank you, Mexico, and thank you, Belgium. Thank you, Soohyo and Hendrik, for working so hard for this document. And as As Soohyo stated in his statement, they worked in the spirit of compromise in the last 3 days, and this is a very sensitive. They worked to achieve this compromise text, and there are many paragraphs in brackets, so this should be easy for us. There are preambular statements that are not in brackets, and maybe we can discuss those. But the rest of the document, I propose and I agree with co-chairs that we do not want to touch anymore on any of these proposed texts, as this has been carefully formulated during the contact group meeting, and would just like to move all these recommendations to the COP in Egypt. Okay. Korea's asking for the floor. Korea.
There is a factual error. I just want to correct. Since we have a bracket for paragraph 20b, according to that, we also needed to have a factual change on Annex paragraph B, which presently says, B, consider the synthesis of views and information and additional studies referred to paragraph 11A, B, and C. So 11 should be 20. So, and also B should have a square bracket. Therefore, finally, the sentence should be
Korea, just to just for us to follow you again.
Yes.
Which paragraph?
Paragraph B.
In the annex.
Paragraph in the annex.
Yes, in the annex.
Okay.
There is it starts with the word consider. The synthesis of views and information and additional studies referred to paragraph 11A, right? But that 11 should be 20. And also, the 11A, P, and B should have a square bracket. Therefore, finally, the sentence should be as what I'm going to say now. Consider the synthesis of views and information and additional studies referred to paragraph 20, bracket A, bracket, comma, space, square bracket, bracket, B, bracket, square bracket. And, yes, and so on.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. And
Okay.
감사합니다.
감사합니다.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, so we got all the brackets. Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you very much for the Mexico and Brazil for this very tough negotiation. Japan is totally agree on to send this CRP directly to the L document. However, so Japan is, because now full text is in the bracket, so Japan, in the spirit of the compromise, just want to request the Secretariat to clarify the status of digital sequence information in relation to the new and emerging issue. Because the item of digital sequence information branched from the discussion on synthetic biology at the COP13. Japan believed that digital sequence information has the same nature as synthetic biology, which has been under the consideration on whether it is a new and emerging issue. However, at the contact group on Wednesday, co-chaired explained that SBSTTA had no mandate to consider whether digital sequence information is a new and emerging issue. Such response was very surprising to Japan because there is an established procedure to determine a new and emerging issue set out by Decision 9/29. So Japan has no intention to challenge the Decision 13/16 on digital sequence information, which does mention any procedure for the determination of a new and emerging issue, and was adopted with consensus. However, Japan is not convinced how digital sequence information bypassed the procedure on a new and emerging issue. And Japan believes that digital sequence information should have followed the due procedure. Thus, Japan wants to request the Secretariat good clarification on the status of digital sequence information in relation to a new and emerging issue, and to record the explanation of the Secretariat in the report of this meeting. Otherwise, our delegation cannot go back to Japan, so please help us. Thank you very much.
I think, the Secretariat don't want to keep you here in Montreal, so they will respond to your question. Montreal, Secretariat, please. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me see if I can explain what I understand to be the situation here. So I think, obviously, first, as we all know, the mandate given to SBSTTA to address this came from a decision of COP 1316 and a decision of the Nagoya Protocol MOP 214. And this, of course, is independent of any process that SBSTTA has for identifying new and emerging issues. For SBSTTA to address an issue, a mandate from COP, and now also a mandate from either of the protocol MOPs, is sufficient. So we have one way of addressing what we call new and emerging issues is through a process established essentially in decision 810 and then somewhat modified after that on new and emerging issues. And this is an opportunity in every biennial cycle for any party, and indeed any observer, to make proposals for issues, to put new issues on the agenda of SBSTTA, which would then take place in the subsequent biennium. So that is a way that anyone and any party and any observer can suggest issues for adding to the agenda. But of course, if you have such an open call, as we do every 2 years, there have to be then criteria to screen that before SBSTTA would then make its recommendation to COP on that process. But that process in no way limits the ability of COP or COP-MOP as sovereign bodies, obviously, to place things on the agenda. This issue, digital sequence information, was put on the agenda by the COP and by the MOP, and that is sufficient. It does not need to be channeled through an additional process through SBSTTA. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Secretariat. I was informed that we no longer have any translation, so I will let you go, and I'll see you at 3 o'clock. We will continue discussing this CRP 10. Thank you very much.